Hello, and welcome to the Introverted Manager. I made an app. Let me show you what I made, and we can talk about it later.
Okay, as you can see, it's a compounding calculator. For those of you who are familiar with dividend investing, it's when you invest into companies that pay out dividends and then you reinvest those dividends back into buying stocks. And when you do that for longer periods, 10, 15, 20 years, eventually it will result into snowball effect of sorts. And with time, your portfolio starts growing exponentially. So I wanted to build a little app to calculate how would your portfolio look like in 10, 15 or 20 years based on certain parameters, as you can see. And I did, and it's working. Of course, I have to do a lot of polishing before publishing it further to the App Store. But you can already see the charts, you can see the numbers, you can see the detailed numbers if you go into show details. You have 3 types of charts, and I'm currently working on implementing full screen view for charts, as well as removing all the hard code that I currently have in the app.
It's absolutely not what I had planned, but every good manager knows. You plan, and then you adapt. At some point, I found myself being a bit bored following 100 Days of SwiftUI. Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing course. But also, after completing 78 days, I found myself not caring that much about the apps that need to be developed throughout the course, or certain topics. I'll give you an example. Accessibility. I do understand how important it is to make apps accessible. But this is a cherry on the cake, and before I have to learn basic concepts. While I'm still struggling with basic concepts, I don't really need to learn accessibility. So I noticed myself slacking more than usual, and instead of pushing myself, I decided that I need to do something of my own to solidify concepts that I learned. I have attempted to make the vaccination tracker first, but it proved a bit too hard for the beginning. I read a lot about tutorial hell. It's when you follow tutorials and seem to understand everything, but then you open ADE and you have no idea what to do. I ended up in that hell, staring at the empty Hello World project. So I took a deep breath, took a step back, and found another idea. Simpler idea. And made that simple app. Or still making it, and enjoying the hell out of it, to be honest.
This is the biggest app I did so far. Let's start with the model. In the model, I have dividend investment struct, which contains those parameters that will be part of the compounding effect calculation. Down in this document, we'll arrive there. But it has initial investment, annual dividend yield, reinvestment parameter years, etc, etc. I won't go into details. Another thing that I want to implement, but not yet, is reinvestment frequency. For example, if you're reinvesting dividends on a monthly basis or just annually, once per year, it really adds up on longer periods like 10, 20 or 30 years and makes a difference. It's not part of the calculation yet, but I will implement it later. Then there is investment data struct, which contains results of the calculation, which I later use in all those charts. And we arrive to the class investment calculator. Here are the defaults that you see when you open the app. And here is the calculation. Let's move on to content view, and you've already seen it in the demo. It's built on standard SwiftUI frameworks plus Swift charts. And initially I've tried to adopt some external package for charts, and it was even easier to implement. But then I realized that that framework wasn't updated since mid last year. Therefore, I decided, okay, even though Swift charts are a bit harder to implement, I will try to make it work. At least I know that Apple will not abandon it, and it will be updated further and further and further down the road. And therefore, I went with Swift charts. Here you can see some code that is commented that I'm planning to implement later down the line. And otherwise, let's move on to chart itself. I have 3 subviews, which for each chart type, line chart, bar chart, average chart, which is called from here. I'm trying to make my code more modular. But there are some issues that, for example, I was not able to solve related to modularity. For example, with annotations, this code is repeated in each chart view. And I would love to store it in one place and be able to change it in one place, but I was not able to find a way how to make it work. Specifically, usually annotation gives me trouble and some errors when I try to reuse that code. Therefore, if someone knows how to fix that, I'll be happy to hear it. What else? I'm still struggling with making previews work for a lot of views. Honestly, I just didn't want to spend much time on that, but I think it's something that I will have to figure out at some point, because it's quite convenient to use previews rather than do build each and every time I want to see the smallest change in the UI. I will not be going through each and every view and just focus on most important parts. You can see that I started using Git for this one, specifically using branches as well. Currently in the main branch I have older working version, and I was doing some refactoring related to the model, adding additional parameters, simplifying it, etc., which I was doing in separate branch. Once I finish all of the work related to refactoring and adding additional parameters, I will merge it into main one. And my very first unit test, I made it, and it's testing the correctness of the calculation for year 1 or 0 actually, and for year 2, which is actually year 1. I need to change those namings. But anyways, I already have one unit test in place, and hopefully I will have more to come. And it seems, because I'm using SwiftUI, I get iPad version for free, kind of, even though I'm not developing for iPad, but I see that it's working. If we wait a bit, anyways, I'm certainly not targeting iPad, but it's nice to know that by developing for iPhone, you get it for free.
And look at this cute icon. I love it.
Okay, let's have a look at the budget of mine. And as you can see, I'm not doing well at all, and way below the baseline. Those adult tickets really set me back. But honestly, it was once in a lifetime opportunity, and I don't regret it one bit. Still, moving forward, I really have to be careful with the expenses like this. If I unzoom, you can see that linear regression shows that, oops, and I accidentally moved the chart around. But if I unzoom, linear regression shows that if I continue this way, I will run out of money in the beginning of December, which is absolutely not my plan.
Now let's talk about what's next. I would like to finish the app and publish it. Some things that I am still planning to do is to add save and state to user defaults, add full screen mode for the charts, update calculations to account for some additional factors, remove all the hard code and comments that shouldn't be there, and settle on some unified color scheme and other small things here and there. And that's the plan. Subscribe and see you in the next one.